In school, they teach you that to grow plants well, you need good sun, water, and soil. But there's another ingredient. I tend to be a positive person, but my life hasn't been easy. I live at home with my mom and twin brother, and I always did well in middle school, but in high school, things were different. I started to lose my focus and not attend school. I dropped out around sophomore year, so I was offered the opportunity to go to Diploma Plus. It was here I would meet the Green Dragons.
We started the Green Dragons in 2012 to explore the power of connecting martial arts with growing food. Our K-12 programs reach about 140 students a week during the school year, and we adapt our curriculum for any age and program type. Sometimes it's an after-school elective, sometimes it's part of the curriculum as a wellness or health science course. Each Green Dragons class has some martial arts and fitness, some connection to learning about growing food and putting it into fresh recipes, and some form of academic literacy, such as drawing, writing, or basic math. Many martial arts, particularly Kung Fu, are based off of animal movements. There's crane style, tiger, eagle, and even styles based off the snake and the mantis. But plants move as well, and in today's fast-paced life, we often forget how to learn from them.
Coming out, and this one's called a shoot. So those of you that know plants, they grow, the fresh new growth on any plant is called a shoot. So shoot right there. Good, and when I call shoot again, I want you to switch. Shoot, shoot, shoot. And then there's the double shoot, pull it back. Double shoot. Whoa.
So as we crafted the Green Dragons curriculum, we really began to look at how we can emphasize this connection between how plants move and how we move.
And they reach out and try to grab, just like a good martial artist. And this one is called tendril. Everybody follow me. Scoop, block, and then punch with the same hand. Boom. And that's called tendril. A tendril is a fancy word. It sounds like this, right? The number 10, and then a drill, like a drill in the wall. Tendril. Let's put that together. Ready?
We use games and forms to emphasize this connection and reinforce this with drawings and discussions. We learn the positives of being rooted and moving fluidly like vines. But if we are like plants, it's also important to think of how the negative things we do to plants in our current system are also like the negative things we do to each other and ourselves. Perhaps more importantly, how can we grow beyond these negative influences on our movement? How do we engage young people in a health program that is empowering and relevant? As a country, it's no secret our students' health is in bad shape. Diet-related diseases that were once only in adults are now epidemic in youth. General fitness and weight control is also at an all-time low. But stats aside, if you've ever taught in a school, you can literally feel the unwellness. Kids are tired, putting their heads down, trouble at home, sometimes work after school. It makes it really difficult to teach any subject in this kind of an environment. So our thinking was that by bringing in something high power like martial arts and connecting it to an integrated diet and gardening education, we could really explore the potential of the synergies that come from putting these together. As we would eventually learn in Wudang, this connection wasn't as original as we thought. It turned out that our first work at the high school level would be at Diploma Plus, a 70-person dropout prevention program that deals with students with a wide range of issues. There are many real and stereotyped issues for the students in these programs. Chronic attendance problems, trouble at home, trouble with drugs, gangs, and that is compounded with the health and wellness issues that are pretty much the standard. It was going to be interesting to see how and if the Green Dragon style would work in this program. At first, just because of the hands-on nature of the class, many students were engaged. Everyone seemed to like the food and recipe parts of the course because they always seemed hungry. But it was in this class where these two young men came into my life as powerful forces. There's always the standouts in any class, the seedlings that surprise you by their rapid or powerful growth. In Vanley's case, it might have honestly been his hair, but they had other strengths too. Vanley and Sedone began coming to my class on Fridays at 8:30 or 8:45, I guess, but They started showing up and really applying themselves and helped to create a positive class for others. Some students that were really into the Green Dragons started coming and trying to take 2 classes in a row. I remember Vanley first because when anyone busts out a flip, you're bound to notice. He was showing these amazing handstands, tricks, flips of all kinds, right in the auditorium where we were learning between classes. I would later learn this was just a glimpse of his skills in free running and parkour. It wasn't just his energy, but as a trained athlete, I can tell the immense amount of training and discipline it took to learn those moves. But where did he get it? As I learned more about his story, his understanding of education also jumped out at me. How could this kid, who was super smart and self-motivated in his mind-body work, end up in a dropout prevention program? Sedone was also an incredible energy, and I had felt his rooted presence in my class since day one. A former football player, he had all the positives and negatives of that style. He was super strong and very quick, but also a bit stiff and inflexible at times. His issues with attendance were similar to Vanley's. When people first started growing plants for production, they brought their seedlings indoors in controlled conditions. But as they grew in their trays, something happened where the seedlings became unbalanced. Their stems would grow too long for their weight, and this could cripple them throughout their life. In the outdoors, plants grow under various pressures. They get pushed around, crowded out, chewed on, and blown around by winds from all angles. Botanists actually study the reaction of plant growth to these physical forces in a field called thigmomorphogenesis, where thigmo means touch and morphogenesis means the creation of form. So touch and integrated movement are key for good plant growth. I view thigmomorphogenesis as that metaphor for that other ingredient we forget to add to our education, our growing of students. We have these pockets of health, science, and physical education, but they are so fragmented from each other in the current system. We also know the pressures that students face, whether it's a troubled home life or just the convenience of fast food, or even the lack of time and money they have to actually get some of this important mind-body work done. To me, that's on us, we as educators and teachers, because we can't fully blame the students for it if we understand the system. Like the farmers who tried to control the seedling growth, we as educators often push too hard for controlled conditions, and this can result in imbalances in our students. Let me give you an example. In one of our activities called the Plant Part Game, the leader shouts out a word that is actually a part of a plant, and the team, after learning the right move, has to respond with their bodies and their mouth.
It starts with the seed, right? Because everything comes from plants, and that's what we love in Green Dragons. And so the first position we do is seed. So make sure you don't bang yourself with a seed. Just get down with me. Seed. Seed. All right, stand up again. We're gonna get moving, so make sure you got your stuff ready. All right. Seed. Step. Root. All right, then we also say root. Hold the root, hold the root. Double shoot. Shoot.
So they're saying the part of the plant as they're moving like it. This combines exercise and basic plant science. Then, if a student is doing well, they get to take the position of the leader, so that they're in control of the rest of the group.
Very nice.
And this reinforces learning even deeper, especially if they make a mistake and can learn how to correct it.
Root. Root, you got it. Keep going. Shoot. Shoot. Double shoot. Nice job, bud. Nice job. Good work.
With just a bit of creativity, Green Dragons has helped show how simple but powerful it can be to reintegrate the physical with the environmental and with the academic. Especially when it comes to health and wellness, it seems to me there is no such thing as a bad student, only bad teachers. This quote doesn't mean it's all the teacher's fault, but it challenges us to re-envision and reenact our version of good growth, to think about what it would be like to create our own wind for ourselves and our students. So Vanley and Sedone responded to the new wind that the Green Dragons provided. By October, they were helping me at conference demos, and by January, they began to help me teach the little dragons in our younger programs. This is also when we had the idea for the trip. The idea to go to Wudang Mountain came totally unexpected when we were learning a unit on martial philosophy through film. To help round out their moves and show that martial arts is more than just about fighting, we watched clips from classic and contemporary films, such as Bruce Lee's Enter the Dragon, the original Karate Kid from 1984, and even Kung Fu Panda. We also watched part of the Karate Kid remake, which was released in 2010. The newer Karate Kid might seem like sacrilege to lovers of the original film, but it's actually almost the same message. And this one in particular was relevant for us because it featured a young black kid from the city who left the US to go to China and started to learn Kung Fu. It was also interesting because one of his main training sites was Wudang Mountain. And that's how it started. A totally unplanned, unforeseen wind that would take us on a journey we would never forget. We launched a Kickstarter, and thanks to everyone who helped us, we got the funds to take the trip. A journey like this is never a fix-all. Sedone still missed his graduation date, and it would take a long time to unravel the years of hard times and bad habits that had grown into him and any student in the system. But the trip would help us see how we could begin to move ourselves in a stronger direction. Because many students are stepped on in this system, and I hear so many stories over the years that remind me that these students really are like the neglected plants that grow in the cracks of cement near the schools. But at the end of the day, so many teachers are also stepped on by the kids in the system, by the system itself, and we're told to take it. And it adds up, and we create our imbalances, but it's something that we can address when we have a better outlet. And to hold it in and let it defeat us is not the martial way. So we made it to China, and our first stop was Beijing. And yep, that's the Great Wall. One of the things we did to keep track of our growth was keep daily voice logs, which you'll hear as we show you some of the incredible stories we shared on our trip from Beijing to Wudang and back.
Day one in Beijing. This is really nice. I like the fact that we actually accomplished our goal. We're finally here. I've been here for a couple of hours, and it's like I've already learned so much, and I'm still looking forward to seeing what else I can learn.
Day one, I'm loving the trip so far, and it's only the first day. It's been great getting here so far with Sedone and Mike. Having company like them is, I don't know, it helped getting through the long times and stuff. As all this exhaustion wears out, the days will be much better. Can't wait to head up to Wudang Mountain. That's gonna be the best part, hopefully. No, it will be the best part.
So we were seeing the sights in Beijing, and we found that our tiredness from touring and traveling would be the first of many tests of our stamina throughout the trip. But it was so much fun, it hardly seemed to matter.
Today was amazing so far. Got to see the Great Wall. Did some awesome tricking there and stuff. Some PK.
And really just started thinking more about the story development of the metaphor as I was cruising up the wall. I just started to notice all the little plants, and some of them even look like the same species that we have in Boston, of these weed plants that, you know, everybody calls the weeds, but they're actually these really tough, beautiful plants that survive in these harsh conditions and slowly take over the urban landscape, and the Great Wall was no exception.
yeah, we went to the Temple of Heaven, which was really, really amazing. The trees were really like old, and they were beautiful. The scenery there was intense, the architecture. It's nice being able to see how different parts of the world had different ideas and ideologies behind their architecture.
The Temple of Heaven was also pretty powerful, just to see the architecture and just learn. Particularly what struck me was the aspect of not having used nails in its construction, but also just reflecting on what it took to get that kind of an architecture and make it perfectly stable and lasting until today. Hundreds of years later is so powerful, just because those are the kinds of connections that I think are really important. Of how do you build something that lasts, that's beautiful, without taking it, using these crazy exploitative and polluting technologies to make it happen.
Day 3. So today we went to Forbidden Kingdom. We went to Summer Palace and the Tiananmen Square. First stop was the Tiananmen Square.
Seeing the Forbidden City was incredible. It had the same levels of art and architecture as the Summer Palace and the other sites we saw, so we were learning as we were going around. But we also ran into some interesting friends along the way.
About 100 people or so had to stop us to take pictures with us. I don't know, I guess we're the oddities around here. And it's pretty interesting.
All the photos were pretty awkward at times, but the guys handled it really well, and maybe I was just jealous because most of the people treated me like I was nothing and sought after pictures with them pretty hard. But one lady took pity on me and invited me into the picture. After Beijing, we hopped an 18-hour train ride to Wudang Mountain, where we would meet up with Master Bing, the Taoist Kung Fu teacher who had agreed to take us on as students.
But now that we're on the train, we've been on the train for hours. It's supposed to be a 17-hour train ride, and I think we have 2 hours left, which is pretty awesome. The scenery is beautiful. You get to see the countryside. There's some amazing bridge we're passing by right now. There's so much beautiful farmland around here. And I just hope it's as amazing when we get to Wudang.
And now as we enter Wudang, just seeing the mountain, the farmland give way to some of the mountains and some of those cities, the rural poor, just intense. And so coming into the mountain, we don't really know what to expect, but as Vanley said, we need more of that in our lives, where sometimes we don't know what to expect when we turn the corner, and that's kind of what's happening here. Once we reached Wudang, we got started right away, training that very night we got there. We also had time to explore the city part of Wudang, which was very interesting and seemed like many other cities, except for the fact that every other store was a weapon store, which showed that many people still shared the legacy of Kung Fu. Yikes. But we soon left the influences of the city for Wudang Mountain itself.
Day 4. We've hiked to the 5 Dragon Temple. The hike itself was a very good experience, a really sincere workout, not only for the body but for the mind, to see how much you can actually push yourself. Now we're staying inside the 5 Dragon Temple. We're staying overnight. We got here, we trained, we did the 8 immortal staffs, as well as other bare armed training. We're all learning, we're all getting stronger, we're all getting we're having a different more open mindset towards certain things. Even me and Van was talking about how this is really gonna change a lot of stuff when we go back home. We're gonna have a really open mind towards certain things where we feel like we need to make a difference. Coming out here really makes you think a lot about certain things about how this world runs and what direction it's leading towards.
Everybody's getting ready to sleep, and just a couple of minutes ago we were in a tea ceremony, which was amazing. The tea just totally centered us. Everything feels so beautiful and surreal. This place is surreal.
I can't say I've learned so much all in so little time, as opposed to being here and learning all the history and seeing the differences for myself and being able to live parts of the culture. It's great. And I'm still thinking about the tea ceremony because I thought that was just great. I'm not even naturally a tea drinker, but something is different about the tea that I drink back home as opposed to the ones out here where it tastes actually fresh and really delicious. So I had about 6 to 7 cups, as opposed to if I was back home I would have had just 6 or 7 sips.
Has this look and feel to it that is perfect for my kind of imagination. It's just in this beautiful state where the plants are taking over, but it's still stable. It still has a vibrant community of monks here who are really special people. And just training here adds so much to our practice of just calming and centering for me, and just the majesty of it has been exceptional. As usual, continually incredibly proud of both the guys for making it and just doing it with their best foot forward and doing it with their best kind of attitude, and it's all just connecting.
Day 5. Today it rained, and normally I'm not the biggest fan for rain, but it was quite lovely.
We hiked for about 4-ish, almost I'd say 5 hours or so, up a mountain. It was all steps, and it was so treacherous. It destroyed my legs and every ounce of energy I had in me.
This is just a stop.
Yeah, come on.
Ah. Go ahead.
You love it.
The hike took about 4 hours, and that was the most intense hike I've ever had in my whole entire life. I don't think I've ever done anything so severe where it felt like my body was shutting down for a little bit because of the fact that it was just I guess I didn't prepare myself as well for it. And I'm just so glad that the Kung Fu training that we had was
my best preparation, and that's what got my whole like motivation to keep going. And I guess that's what also got my conditioning better to be able to keep going.
So how you guys feeling?
Starving.
I lost feeling like a long time ago. It was like,
lunch.
there is no feeling. The feeling is just numbness.
There's no more waste doesn't exist anymore. Like food waste. Your body uses everything. I'm empty. It's just evaporating out of me. It's awesome. Something is making me want to like keep doing this hike over and over again because I want to master it.
Do you count those steps?
No, I think it's like 1 billion death. But it's awesome. It completely exhausts you.
Even though it was hard, it was like the view was great.
It was great though because at some points along the way, we stopped and took a swim in an awesome, like beautiful lake. We found one where we were doing some diving too, which was awesome.
Also got to swim in a lake that was like I've been wanting to do for so long. We also got to do this thing where we jumped off a bridge into the lake.
Hey! Okay.
Do it, man. Jump far.
And I thought that was like so amazing. Like if it were for me, I would just keep going back to just do that. It was that incredible.
So we got back from that hike, and the level of work it was going to take became clear. Sedone was so tired at one point he passed out on a hard stone floor, no pillow. We trained almost 5 hours a day with hikes in between, pushing ourselves to the limits in every way and training the staff, fan, and bare hand forms. It was great for us all to slip into a full student mode and let the wind begin to shape us. As we stayed with the Taoists, we also saw how they lived the Green Dragon Way. Each day, in addition to their meditation, Tai Chi, and Kung Fu, they made these amazing meals and almost all the food was local, right from their farms, right next to the temple. We spent a couple of afternoons farming with them to learn their sustainable methods. The farming was basic sustainable agriculture. Beans, greens, and eggplants were the staples. It was so natural they even used human compost for their crops, as we learned.
但是他们不用大粪. You don't use physics.
Huh?
Do you use physics?
You don't?
You don't. Do you use?
Oh, do I?
啊
From cow or chicken?
哦，它是用动物的粪，牛粪、鸡粪。
那也可以，
It's good too.
那也可以。
I get, well, if it's from the monk, the masters here, who are eating fresh food,
Oh.
then it's good. But from city people, it's probably not good.
I probably the same.
Yeah. But what was powerful is that we saw how they incorporate this into their everyday life. They weren't just farmers or just meditators. They practiced these together. This was important to us because this is the model we try to replicate in the schools back in the States. In contrast to the Taoists in the United States, I've seen that we need to unlearn the distinction between fitness and healthy sustainable eating. There are so many chemical-based and exotic diets that claim to fuel our athletics well, but the Taoists showed a strong way to counter this divided lifestyle. As we continued the training, we realized how connected our martial arts were to the healthy, sustainable, and freshly prepared foods we were eating every day. To the Taoists, growing and preparing fresh food seemed to be another form of martial art.
Garden, seeing all these plants, all the plant life, the farmers working around, the monks. Oh, this is amazing. The people are great.
And all the foods that we've been eating out here, it's like freshly grown and really, really good. So we're putting a lot of good stuff in our body. We're working out the body. And with all the knowledge, we're working out our minds. So it's like the best education / best physical workout that you can get. And I think it's because of the fact that we actually here to like live the culture as opposed to just reading about it.
I realized that this is what we needed to teach because we needed to practice it the most. This means that we need to recognize that we all can do so much more to live sustainably, but that it doesn't have to mean a sacrifice. When community and adventure are mixed in with fitness and healthy eating, living in this way doesn't seem so bad or so hard. The guys and I had started to translate this into our teaching back in Boston. I noticed how much their assistant teaching accelerated the learning about the connections between sustainable food and exercise. For example, in Green Dragons we have a recipe we use with ingredients we can grow ourselves called dragon water. This is a cucumber, mint, and lemon infused water. And we teach about how the natural electrolytes in the cucumber are more sustainable and better for your body than the synthesized ones in sports drinks like Gatorade. We don't just drink it, we teach it. We require the students to write the recipe and memorize it, and eventually they have to show they can make it by themselves or with a small team without any help. This is just like how we test ourselves in martial arts. This is just some of their competency-based learning we use, and even if they are fast or strong or fit, they don't pass to any higher level in our programs until they show progress in martial arts, food preparation, and general gardening knowledge and practice.
This is rosemary because it's the thinnest leaf. This is thyme because it looks like little flowers.
Yeah.
Rose, mint, sage, rosemary, thyme, basil.
Excellent. My favorite classes are when we can adapt the Taoist way to the urban classroom. We warm up, do our martial arts, then the students can make dragon water on their own, even picking fresh ingredients from a garden we made ourselves when they're available. They make this into something we can all share together, and they learn deeper by preparing this. I have many stories of kids saying things like, I hate cucumbers, or I hate this ingredient or that ingredient, or this is nasty. But when they make it, they are more optimistic and more willing to try it, and they also want to share it with other people. I remind myself that I am just as susceptible to convenience food or lazy habits, but by creating classes where we are organic in our bodies and minds, and literally creating foods we put in our bodies to fuel our activities, we are closing the loop and creating a sustainable fitness and academic environment. As a Green Dragons teacher, I get to teach what I need to learn the most. The knowledge, skills, and spirit we picked up in Wudang Mountain were what we needed to learn the most. There were so many valuable lessons about how to connect our bodies to the natural world around us, how to conserve our energy, and how to work together. There was also so much straight-up exhaustion that it taught us about ourselves and our own limitations. That's what it takes to really learn. The wind we experienced was so much like those that the outdoor seedlings get, the ones that get pushed and stepped on as they try to grow. That's what we found in Wudang. This makes them strong and resilient, and it also creates an opportunity to take even more advantage of real hard training. When we returned to Boston, the Wudang trip would still continue to shape us, but I have to ask, why does it take such a grand intervention to create the conditions that seem so natural and basic for people like the Taoists? There were no fancy machines, no set classrooms, everything was teaching and learning at the same time. The question is like asking why the strongest plants seem to grow at the fringe of the school and not inside of it. How can we take the lessons of hard work and real environment back into classrooms that seem to have so little wind? One day after a hike, Master Bing took us to the foundation of an old building, and it turned out to be a former school of his that had to be torn down. The government had actually required that he take his school down and move it somewhere else, as they wanted to expand their heavy tourist industry to places like the Five Dragon Temple.
When I built the temple was last year, the government wants all the farmers who live around the temple, they have to move down the temple, move down the mountain. So my school is inside the village.
And how does this make you feel?
I feel a little bit upset. I feel upset because I'm not a farmer's live on the mountain. I am teaching Wudang Kung Fu by the side of the temple. Should be fun, but everybody have to move.
The expansion of the tourist industry was putting the farms near the Five Dragon Temple at risk. The government had slowly put pressure on the farmers to dissolve their farms and anybody else who had a business near them, and Master Bing's Kung Fu school was no exception. This pressure seemed to me a lot like those that U.S. public schools face, where they're under threat from different kinds of priorities that don't take seriously the overlap of fields like food and fitness and how they could potentially help some of the academic problems we see in our system. We began to see how both his world and ours were slowly being pushed away from being able to grow and sustain ourselves well. It seemed like the seedlings in Wudang and the seedlings in Boston could use some overlapping work to push back on the system that creates a divide between our minds, our bodies, and our souls.
So to balance their seedlings, farmers learned how to channel thigmomorphogenesis by actually adding oscillating fans indoors to promote strong growth. This helped them better prepare their seedlings for when they were transplanted outdoors. In this way, they would be ready for any condition.
In the year following the trip, Sedone was able to help me right away with my summer camp teaching, getting even deeper as a Green Dragon. It took him another 8 months, but he finished his requirements and finally graduated high school.
I basically came to the conclusion that when someone wants to help you, you should take it, because not everyone has the opportunity to get help from specific people. And I feel like it's kind of like you can take a horse to a lake, but you can't force it to drink. So it's like someone can want to help me, but unless I'm willing to help myself, I can't really move on. So I figured with the help I can get now, because I'm not always gonna get help in life, so I should take it when I get the opportunity. So from there, every time I had help or anytime I got some sort of motivation, I just kept it and just really strive to do what I had to do and just move on from there.
Vanley had one more year left even before the project, and he spent another year in my class that was part of a larger environmental science elective.
So training in Wudang has helped me realize that a lot of these challenges that I've faced have been mainly stamina, endurance, or motivation based. Whether it's hiking a mountain or graduating high school or doing my martial arts. And they've helped me to see a different perspective that makes me even happier to push at them. Now that I'm graduating, I feel that all of these challenges are just new obstacles that I'm eagerly awaiting to push through.
The Wudang trip has evolved, and this year we are taking another student who has met the requirements, named Franklin. Franklin has been working hard to prepare for the rigors of the trip, because now he's been able to see what actually happens when we get there.
I didn't know anything, to be honest, but then, like I said, as I kept going to the classes, I found out that it's a way of you relaxing and actually working your body, making it be more healthier. My physical goal is to lose weight and get a little bit in shape. Not a little bit, but get in shape. Right now, I weigh 220, 225, and I would like to go down to 190, 180, around there. I think that the Green Dragons are important for public education. It's because a lot of us are we don't know much about things that are out there and the things that we can eat and the things that we can do to make our health better.
So as the Green Dragons, we plan to continue to work within the system, to use our oscillating fans to help the current seedlings, but we also want to think about an alternative system. Imagine a gym with plants growing out the walls that you can eat and learn to grow yourself. Or maybe a cafe where you can earn some dragon water for right after your workout. This idea is not far off, but it comes with understanding what it takes to build a foundation in the tough winds that face all educational systems today. Because one of our strongest lessons on our trip was that in order to learn what we want to learn and teach what we want to teach, we'll need to come together, because when we move together, that's one way to create an even stronger wind. As with any workout regime, sometimes it takes a little while to see the results, and by the end of the trip, we were all exhausted. Especially these two who I caught sleeping in the back of the van on the way to one of our training sites. That's the kind of tired you can't fake, and we would all sleep for days when we got back home. On one of our last days of training, Master Bing took us to the new building where he hopes to build a new school in the wake of his old one. We had a great day training there, capping off some of the forms we had learned for the last week and reminiscing about the trip. But in the rundown doorway, I found a weed that looked just like the ones we have in Boston. And it too was blowing in the wind, which reminded me that we can still build even more connections with Master Bing. And maybe one day help him rebuild his school just like we hope to rebuild our own. Vanley Sedona and I started by coming together and learning more about each other through this amazing journey. But we also hope to keep this connection alive with Master Bing. As we move together with his efforts, perhaps one day we can help him get his new school. Thigmomorphogenesis reminds us that touch, physicality, and work, literally kung fu, are so needed back in our schools. The diversity in the weeds we encounter is so rich, and each one has lessons to teach us. We just need to remember how to listen. Wudang helped us all retrain our minds, bodies, and souls to feel the wind of the earth, and it uncovers the part of you that needs work. We have each made strides since the trip, so the question turns to you. Which form of seedling do you identify with? The rugged one that grows in the cracks, the neglected one, the stepped on one, or perhaps the one grown in controlled conditions, the one that has grown too tall for its root without any real challenge? Or do you just feel like you want to see what is next, and that you're ready to be transplanted in a new garden? Making this trip happen helped us realize that it's not too late to start, to begin listening to the wind, and to begin feeling the wind. In the end, as different as we are, we all do have one thing in common, and it's that, like this seedling, we are just getting started.